beliefs. They're huge, because if you believe in abundance, but your definition is only on the good stuff, then you may not be realizing that your belief is probably focused on the bad stuff. Why? Well, that's simple. Because what you focus on is what you get, and what you put out is what you get, and what you sow is what you reap, and but your soul's saying, if you are hooked into the negative, you're off your mark of love. You need to begin to see the quality of the thoughts, the quality of the feelings, and if you don't want them, then you just make a choice that I'm done with them. That's where the tools can come in and help you break that habit, and you begin to intentionally work with yourself. It's like, I need to go onto a diet and exercise. I need to focus on that every day. That should be what my GPS is set to do, not set to sabotage, not set to into my old beliefs that, an abundance of hell. You may not believe that you think that you have abundance of hell or abundance of issues, but without realizing how you focus, you do. You can tell your story. You can talk about your wounds. Everybody here. Your thoughts are so important. The quality of those thoughts are so important. Most people don't understand that when you're operating in your left or your right side of the brain, you can be talking positive in the conscious aspect. And then the next breath, your thought drifts down into the subconscious. And the next thing you know, you're thinking, that bastard, why did he do that to me? Or, oh my God, did I say that? Did I hurt their feeling? Oh, I got to correct that. Those sound like innocent thoughts to some degree, but they are probably hooked to a habit, a pattern, a strategy to survive. And those actually can cause you to become weak. I would muscle test people, and positive thoughts would make you strong, negative thoughts make you weak. And if you do denigrating thoughts, these are thoughts that are negative towards you, okay? You do that, and I've seen many patterns. One of them is to abuse yourself. Another is to, I don't want that bad thing to happen, so if I do this to myself, then that won't happen. So it's like a superstition. And some of it is all you hear is the voices in your head thinking, this is what my mother says about me, and she's right, and it's not true. There are so many things. Like I said, I can't seem to get the movie to watch it again. But The Illusion with Michael Douglas, okay, I think it's like in 2004 or something like that. I can't remember. And it was so important because he had a son, but he never met his son. Okay, so the old man's on his deathbed, and the son is walking around with his voice. Now, it wasn't even his tone of voice, but he just imagined. And that's very important to understand. Your imagination can cause a lot of your health. It has to do with how you think. And so he was thinking that his father was saying this and this tone of voice about his behavior, about him, and it would control his every aspect and move and direction. Because there was just an unresolved story, an unresolved issue that the child had because he never met his father, because he, there's many things. So it's a good movie to watch. But our thought process is very unique. And if you think, well, if I don't think out loud, then it won't count. Oh, yes, it does. Your subconscious mind, which is, you're looking at it, it's your physical body, and your brain is a recorder for everything. And that's what your soul does. Your soul is a recorder. But your soul is also this beautiful consciousness. Same for your body. But when you are in beta, you are talking to me and you're consciously looking at me and everything's good. It is when you drop down into your brainwaves becomes alpha, theta, delta, sleep. But when you're in alpha and theta and you're functioning, but if you are not understanding the quality, you can end up being in a post-hypnotic suggestion. So you're watching TV and you're watching a scary movie. And your imagination kicks on the same time. And you get so involved that it feels like it's going to affect you. And that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to feel it. That's what a great movie does. But when you don't learn to separate, you can observe, but a lot of us absorb stuff. So our bodies will sit there and go, do you remember the time that happened to you? Sometimes it didn't. It was you were in the experience with watching. So it's very important, as what I do as a medicine woman is I look and I can see these cords, where they're imagined, whether they're real, where they're TV, where the environment, and it's asking kind of like a details to some degree. A lot of you will sit and go, oh my God, I had that dream of that movie that night. Well, that's good compared to what I just said. Why is it good? In the state of dreaming, your brain takes your information that you have in your files. Okay, it's what you've learned, everything that you believe in, everything you're open to, and it goes through and it uses a connection with an emotion. And usually they'll use fear to get you to wake up, to remember the dream. And when you define the dream, it's not what you think it is. We can jump to conclusions. If you're in high beta, which is all that stress about the dream, and it's pushing a particular emotion over and over, it wants you to recognize the emotion, label the emotion, and then resolve it. Your soul is, again, on a sleeping level, says, can you resolve it now? And that's what's happening on that level. It's doing its best to resolve, but at the same time, it's doing its best to communicate with you. It does not have the language of a voice like English. No matter where you are in the world, whatever language you speak, it doesn't speak that. It is a light language. It is a frequency. It's very powerful. And it's us. It's consciousness. So, your thoughts. Let's drop. Yeah, I'm not going to get too deep. I'm just going to hit a few things. But how many times have you felt the energy of whoever's in the house? And then all of a sudden you're like, Jesus. I just get on my space. Or the desperation of, oh my God, I'm just not getting enough attention. Sometimes a lot of you empaths out there don't know where you end and they begin. If you're really close connection with your partner, you will do an exact mirror of an emotion, but tell the story differently according to how your lenses and programs are. So, it is important to understand these thoughts. It's important to understand these emotions. And it's not to get lost in it. It's not to run like running with scissors. We have a tendency to use that imagination to tell ourselves a story of what we just witnessed or felt. And we don't really have that maturity level, that recognition level, that spiritual level to stand back and say, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, I may display some of these behaviors, but wait a minute. I don't know if I really go that far. And it's not about blaming anybody. That consciousness turned into a soul that raised its hand and says, I'll be the villain in your life today. But half the time you think that the relationship, whether it's your child or your animals or your neighbor or your loved one, a lot of times you're just over going, Jesus! You create a display. But that's what's going on in the head. And all that is telling you that you have a block, maybe in the heart region, a hidden heart wall. It is that you're sick and tired of, I'm so fed up. I cannot tolerate that tone of voice or that behavior or that signature. And you will sometimes take that and you will be with somebody else watching TV and you've never met them before, never saw them before. And all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, I hate that person. And you have no idea why, but it's not the person. It's a signature of a vibration that carries certain frequencies of emotions. The behavior, you know what a narcissist is. And if you don't, then look it up. There are many different levels, but people can be from one degree of narcissist to very mild and mannered, but yet there are still certain things. Now, I have half of you, you're talking, and I'm just going to say this for a kinesthetic, okay? A kinesthetic is somebody that is, feels, okay? And there is, when you are your even part of you, it all makes sense. But the moment you start to get stressed, you'll begin to feel exaggeration. You'll begin to feel how much you don't like it. You'll feel the reactions. You'll feel them. You'll feel it make it worse. There's auditory. You can read between the lines, but when you get into that high beta stress with the auditory, then all of a sudden you'll hear things that weren't said. You were interpreting it differently, and you're trying to save your ass. You're trying to survive. Auditory, digital is the way they think, and they seem like they don't really have a lot of empathy. And again, it's all how you get stressed. If you can learn how to calm that stress down, then you're going to be able to use your sensory in a much healthier manner. And you have to learn all these little things in order for you to begin to understand. And again, you start to know here, and you get the knowledge so that you can begin to communicate with those around you. If you have a program that stops you from seeing their behavior, then that is a healing. You need a healing. You need to be able to recognize when somebody's hurting you. The huge thing was when I didn't know that I was being gaslighted, and that is to trick somebody. I don't want to say that word either. The best way I'd say gaslighting for me was when they want to win an argument and they want to be right. And they would turn around and somehow make whatever the issue is my fault and drive me insane. And after a while, it's like, you know what? I just want to be happy. You can sit there and be right all you want, but you're going to do it without me. And you learn to say enough's enough. You have to learn to create boundaries. And then those are hard to do when you're taught to be, I have to do the right thing. I got to be nice. I got to be sweet. I have to do this and that's. And you're operating out of your heart to some degree, but you're also expecting them to operate out of the same kind of heart you have, and they're not going to. It's very important to understand if you're in a relationship and you guys are both, and all of a sudden you start to grow and they are like, no, I ain't gonna. You can stay where they are, or they go lateral, or they go backwards. You can't sit there and be mad at yourself like they want you to. People around you, not the person that you didn't grow with, even the people that don't want you to show up any other way than they let you. Hey, you've changed. Get back to being the sweet little thing that I can control. I mean, half the time, people don't even know that they're doing that. It's just that you're upsetting their world. And they will say things to pull you back down. And if you have guilt and shame that control you, then you're going to go back into that habit, be controlled again, be in that situation one more time, and everybody's happy. But you just sold yourself out. And the scary part is nobody wants to be alone. But it's more alone in a relationship when you have to keep cutting parts of yourself up just to fit into their world. They haven't decided to grow from that program. You don't want to be this program anymore. That's part of awakening, is that you're beginning to awaken from the program. You're learning to be different than you were yesterday. You're learning something different, and you're learning to create a better, healthier you. So when this person, like Julie says, so how do we ever really know what someone means? You have to know thyself. You need to begin to see how people communicate. The biggest lesson for me was when I started to remove all of those emotional fears. I was extreme introvert, extremely shy, couldn't talk. The idea of putting me in front of a camera, okay, that was hell. But I don't have any of that anymore because I went and I used different tools to really get deep down and to release my triggers, release how I have to react, change the programs. Then the knowledge of how do we love, the languages of love. How do we communicate sensory-wise? Don Eden talks about it. And when you begin to learn how you even operate under a stress mode, which is the kinesthetic, auditory, visual, digital, you begin to learn all these different little things. All of a sudden, you have empowered yourself with this enlightenment, which then gives you enough light to not have to sit there and be in the dark. Okay, it takes time to work on yourself, to know yourself.